The sad thing about this is Nicola Sturgeon was basically Salmon's underling. He was grooming her for the leadership. You know, what's it? In order for the Sith, in order for the Sith to rise and become the master, he has to kill his own master. Yeah, that's what's happened here. It's quite sad.
Anyway, let's get to this. So, I caught this thread this morning, and I'm just going to read it because it's just. Let's get to it. My friends, whether you realize it or not, you believe or you don't want to believe me, the America you woke up in the morning of November 6, 2020 is no longer the America you lived in and loved all of your life. Dear Susan, I am just reading this as written. So, cardio with a cig, you're the man, Don. Thank you. Saying, today we remember individual liberty. We mourn the loss of freedom of choice. We honor the memory of a great country, the United States of America, 1776 to 2020. Just like my father, I witnessed the communist takeover of the democratic Romania in 1946, when the communists first cheated in the elections and took over the government. NA, the sun, not the hammer and sickle, was the communist electoral symbol. Ooh, big F. And just like I, after a life lived in fear and deprived of freedom, suddenly found myself a participant in the 1989 anti-communist revolution and the return of democracy in Romania after 43 years of communism. So, have you in the past month witnessed the end of the American Age of Liberty and the beginning of radical change in the history of this country? Unfortunately, this change won't be for the better like the one I lived through. It will be for the worse, like the one my dad witnessed in his youth. What lays ahead of us isn't going to be easy. It's been long said that history proved time and again that people can sometimes vote their way into socialism, but they always need to shoot their way out. Sooner or later, patriots always need to put their lives on the line and sacrifice themselves for freedom. I have faith in God that eventually good always triumphs over evil. Sometimes it takes just months, sometimes years, sometimes, like in the case of my own old homeland, it takes 2 generations. 43 long years, to be precise. We have 2 choices ahead of us. Wake up and take action now, or comply and let your children and grandchildren bleed for your liberty decades into the future. Most of my father's generation complied. They believe the communists who cheated in the 1946 election will be defeated the next one, and everything will go back to normal. After all, they said it wasn't possible for a party with only 1,000 registered members to win again in 4 years. But in 4 years, there wasn't another party left around but the Communist Party. All other parties were declared illegal, and their leaders were either already executed or about to die after being interned in re-education camps. They believed when the gun registration laws passed in 1947 that it was okay to comply because it was passed just to prevent criminals and right-wing fascists of the old Iron Guard to hold on to their guns. My father's generation registered their guns, and the communists came later on the same year and confiscated them. Only single and double-barrel shotguns were left legal, and only after paying a tax and joining the National Hunter Organization is the sole reason to own a gun. They believe the Communist Party press and radio propaganda telling them that those small groups of anti-communist militias who refused to surrender their guns and started fighting back in the mountains were right-wing fascists and terrorists. Later the same year, my father's generation believed the anti-communist protest and attack on the government palace was perpetrated by groups of right-wing students when in fact those led the charge were responsible for the violence were communist provocateurs. The communist police raided the University of Bucharest dormitories, arrested 1,000 students under the charges of terrorism, sedition, and then the following day the Secretary General of the Communist Party went in audience to the royal palace. The communist leader told young and very popular head of state, King Michael, "You are responsible for the attack. The students were just listening to you. Abdicate and leave the country, or in 24 hours we will execute the students arrested yesterday." The king chose exile to save the lives of 1,000 young students, most of them the same age he was at the time. Thus ended the democratic parliamentary kingdom of Romania, and the country became, for the next 43 years, the People's Republic of Romania, later renamed the Socialist Republic of Romania. Any part of these stories sound familiar to you? Blatant, in-your-face election cheating? Again, Susan, I'm just reading as written. Communist agitators posing as pro-democracy protesters worked hand-in-hand with the Communist Party, controlled media, in order to frame the opposition, blackmail its leaders, and illegally remove the head of state. My father's generation complied and didn't object to anything. Lots of people who opposed communism believed the Americans will soon get in a war with the Soviets for the liberation of Eastern Europe from communism. All they had to do, they thought, was stay put and wait for the liberating GIs to arrive. They never came. So my father's generation lived under the communist yoke all their lives until my generation gathered the courage to get out in the streets and paid the price of liberty. The price of liberty was 2,500 young lives. Are we going to do the same thing my father's generation did? Do nothing? Comply with the communist demands and pass the burden and the blood price of freeing our country to our children and grandchildren? Or are we going to stand up for our now stolen liberty, refuse to comply, organize, and take back our future as free Americans, for ourselves and future generations? And of course, the ever-infamous Jefferson quote, which I'm sure is Fed posting at this point. Because God forbid you quote a founding father of the friggin' country.
So, here's the thing. The working class break into the Capitol building, okay? What happens in response? The political elite, the media elite, freak the fuck out. You have images of the Democrats writhing on the ground in fear. It's like, how is that, doesn't that encapsulate all of U.S. politics, where you have these bourgeois elites just writhing on the ground in fear that the working class has literally stormed the Capitol.
Yeah.
And all they do is like stand around and shit and sit on Nancy Pelosi's desk, and Baked Alaska crank calls Trump on her phone. It's like, it really, like, outside of that cop tragically dying and some fistfights and that sort of immoral stuff, it's like a lot of it was just nonsense. And it's like, and yet still, like, they were legit terrified. Like, I don't doubt that they were fucking terrified. And that to me is the sign. And by the way, the thing is, I can't say
that to me is a sign of a guilty conscience.
The left, it's like the left condemning that. It's like the elites in fear of the people. Oh, that's terrible. That's immoral. Yeah. Fuck you. How about that? How about fuck you?
Why is it immoral? Like, isn't that the predicate for freedom, according to Benjamin Franklin?
Well, that's the thing. Start
calling back all this founding father stuff.
I think
where the people fear the government, there is tyranny.
Yeah,
where the government fears the people, there is
liberty.
I think. Don't be afraid, Nancy Pelosi. We have a state of liberty here. You should be thrilled.
I think these people worship the fucking state. I think these people actually worship the fucking state.
No, they absolutely do. Listen to the inviolable language, the sacred language.
Yeah, dude, they literally call this sacrosanct, a temple.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, sorry, hang on a second, state worshippers. Yes. Who owns this building? Tell me who owns that fucking building. Tell me which one of you owns this building. Which king owns this building?
I know.
Because as far as I was concerned, that was a building owned by the people of the United States, was it not?
Well, what I love
that, if not that,
is that, like, the founding fathers could not be more explicit. Where it's like, yeah, if any of this ever gets out of whack, just burn this motherfucking thing to the ground. Like, that was their entire position.
I know.
And yet it's today. It's like, no, worship the state. It's like,
it's fucking European commie. Thought that is infested the Democrat Party.
It's German thought in French.
It is. Well, European commie thought, that is essentially German thought. You know, it's like, it's mad, and I hate it, and it's totally anti-American.
On time and gay. Never change, chat.
It's so crazy that we live in a world where you can send out a tweet, where you can just type a paragraph that gets so much traction and human focus, and can alter the dialogue of the world, of the earth, in like for months.
I got an idea. I'm gonna buy a boat and I'm gonna name it The Election. And then Ian,
We'll rig it together.
we'll rig it together.
Yeah.
And then you can
I'll
tweet.
rig the election
Ian
with
can
you.
tweet. I can personally state as a statement of fact that I rigged the election.
And then I'm gonna steal it.
Yes. Do it.
No, but think about how funny it would be if you came out on Twitter and you were like, I can confirm I rigged the
I
election.
rigged the election, and Tim Pool was involved.
Yeah. And then people are going to be like, whoa, he's saying it. And then you'll show a
And then
picture of
Tim
you at a
stole the
boat
ele-
that says the election on it.
Luke stole the election.
According to the police, Sinclair of Benson, Pennsylvania, told the officers he brought the brass knuckles to Washington for protection, the police report said. He said he attended the Trump rally and marched to the Capitol grounds but did not enter the building. He had consumed 2 cranberry vodkas an hour before his arrest, the report adds. Well, that's it. You caught him. You caught John Rambo. You got him. Checkmate. He had brass knuckles and drinks cranberry vodka.
It's the most well-known thing about me. Right, I say shit I don't believe. If I know it'll annoy you.
Hey, Bering, I tried to tippy-toe... Oh, the tippy-toe orgasm you were talking about. I nearly broke my ankle. Yeah, but
Tried the
Wait,
what?
what?
But was it...
Oh, the one in the shower when you have a wank in the shower and you
Yeah.
and you stand up on your tippy toes when you come.
How, what does that do?
Well, I think I just started naturally doing it when I was like 13, 14. I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I'm going to come. And I'd go up on my tippy toes and I'd jizz on the soap rack.
Oh, that's a great spot for it.
What does that do? Does that add to it? Like,
No, it doesn't add anything. It was just a natural reaction. It's
Yeah.
just what I did
who
naturally.
goes on their tiptoes like a fucking ballerina when they come?
Yeah, no, I did.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, tippy toes.
That's the most beta orgasm I've ever heard, man. I just grunt like a gorilla and let rip. Right? Like, I don't go on my tippy toes.
Hang on a sec. Let's just say you're in bed fucking your wife and you jizz. You don't do any form of tippy toes? Your feet don't tippy toe at all?
No, I don't fucking tippy toe. I also don't call it tippy toe. Fucking hell.
What do you call it? The man toe point.
Yeah.
What do you call it?
Dank just rips a big fart and
I
just
just
blows
call
his load.
I just call it go on your toes or your tiptoes, like not tippy toe.
JE for $10. So they're going to throw based grandma in the gulag for 20 years. Got it. This will definitely end with a peaceful transition. Huh? Yeah.
Bobby Collins. Everyone a part of the Lotus Eaters podcast are predominantly white. The host, white. The co-host, white. Hugo, white. No simping. Video questioners, white. That Asian guy, white. The purple waiting screen, white. Yeah, Ranveer, white. Like,
My wife is half Filipino, right? And she was in the Philippines when she was like, I think she
Oh, did
was
she eat
7 or
dogs?
8. Probably. But she was in the Philippines when she was 7 or 8, and in the village, right, where her traditional family lives or whatever, there was this little baby pig, and she adopted this little baby pig. It was her pet, and she thought she was going to take it home to England to be a pet. And then one day she gets up, and they're sticking a spear through its eyes, out its mouth, and they spit roast it for dinner. And she couldn't eat pork or bacon until she was about 18, 19, and I quickly convinced her. I said, here's a bit of crackling, here's a bit of bacon, shut the fuck up.
Get
And
over
she's
it.
Like, okay. She's like, fair enough.
So is that part of the dome then? And it's being lit?
Yeah, is it a thing? The moon?
Yeah, what is the moon?
That's a great question, and nobody knows. But the moon affects, women's reproductive cycles. The moon,
It certainly does.
People, it does a lot of crazy stuff, right? So, what is the moon? You know that moonlight, when you magnify it, gets colder, unlike sunlight that gets hotter.
No, that's not.
Yeah.
When you magnify moonlight, it doesn't get colder. What do you
Yes,
mean?
it does.
No, it
Have you done
doesn't.
that?
It's
Have you
light.
done it?
No, I haven't done it. That's not how light works. Even a light from an incandescent bulb, if you
type of
focus
light.
it gets hotter.
If you put meat out under a full moon, under moonlight, it'll start decaying much faster than under sunlight, which will purify and sterilize it. The moonlight makes it rancid and decay.
Wait, where is that? What do you mean the moonlight makes meat decay?
Yeah, look it up. Look it up. I'm telling you, you can do these experiments yourself. This is stuff that we're never taught in school. Were you taught that Antarctica is the highest land on Earth?
No, I was not taught
the
this.
Mountains in Antarctica higher than Everest?
No. Is there anywhere where any of this is valid? I know that moonlight thing is not true. I know that focusing moonlight does not make it colder.
How do you know that?
Because all light works the same. It's all the same. It's all the same photons over the entire universe. If you focus them, they get hotter.
So do you know that the sun isn't even hot?
Okay.